person is provided with a destiny or a mission. However, the key to unlocking your purpose is often found in your response to struggles and hardships. Nelson Mandela and Louise Hay could have quit, but they didn't. So instead, they kept on walking towards the light. Personal growth is optional each time you go through a difficult situation. However, it can open doors to something better. After transformational hardships, you can reassess your life and make necessary changes to change your future. Every adverse experience has meaning and purpose. When meaning and purpose are assigned, then it can be more readily accepted and you gain more motivation to change and accept the outcome. When you open your mind that you might not have all the answers, when you see the conditioning and programming of your past, when you choose to live with integrity and value your energy, when you find the messages in every defeat, when you let go of all judgments, when you realize the power of energy, thoughts, and emotions, when you no longer live in fear, you will see the magic of life unfold right before your eyes. The following paragraph comes from the book Manifesting Miracles and Money by Michelle Paisley Reid, which sums up the purpose of challenges. Michelle channels the power of 10 as questions are asked of them. The question: how did this concept of learning through contrast and suffering start? And they answer, quote, you are all as human beings like babies. You are learning as babies do. You are standing up and stumbling as you learn to walk. Learning through suffering is the same way. You must learn through contrast before you choose some different way of learning. It is time for you. You've had many hundreds of thousands of cycles, many of you, not all. Your babies will choose to continue until they are ready to graduate. However, many of you are ready to graduate and are simply resisting the graduation, thinking that there are more creature pleasures here. When you leave this existence and unzip your body to reveal the truth of who you are, you will know so much more. But you, for now, have chosen to learn through contrast because you are babies in the infinity of this life and as we know it. Close quote. Rabbi Steve Leder has 30 years of counseling people when their lives fall apart, so he has a front seat to a life of pain with those who are suffering. After a serious car accident, he suffered excruciating pain from his back to his toes. In the course of his recovery, he was prescribed opioids, medications, etc., which led to a downward spiral. There were times when he would be curled up on the floor screaming for morphine. After that, he published a book called More Beautiful Than Before: How Suffering Transforms Us. Despite lecturing on suffering prior, he had no knowledge of it before his car accident, which led him to write the book. Rabbi Leder states that it is not an idealization of pain, but all humans suffer to some degree. It's hard, painful, and can push people to their limits. It's only a matter of finding purpose in your suffering that makes the difference.
You know, I say in the book, everyone goes through hell. The point is not to come out empty-handed. Because my experience forced me, not only gave me a new perspective on pain and how to help others, but it really forced me to make some important changes in my own life. And, you know, the Talmud says if you are visited by pain, examine your life. If you are visited by pain, examine your life. Which is, I think, the rabbi's way of saying that pain is its own opportunity. And the truth is, we don't learn very much from success. The only thing success teaches us is to keep doing whatever it is we were doing. Pain is the teacher. Pain is the great teacher. It is. If you're a willing student.
Individuals choose their life experiences before incarnating. Can you share some examples of NDEs recounting this when they passed over to the other side?
Sure. Near-death experiences, NDEs, often describe choosing their life experiences before incarnating on Earth. incorporating both positive and challenging events into their spiritual development. This perspective suggests that souls plan specific life events, relationships, and challenges before birth in order to foster personal growth and understanding. Positive and adverse experiences are believed to contribute to soul evolution, fostering compassion, empathy, and self discovery. The interpretation of NDEs vary, but they can offer meaning in our life that we have actively chosen the circumstances of our earthly journey to facilitate profound learning and growth. The following excerpts are from the NDEs explaining this concept when they crossed to the other side.
Here I am with this loving creator who's kind of let all the big stuff go that I was really worried about. And then I suddenly become angry with him. And I realized I'd been angry with God for a long time. And I told him, I said, you say you're this loving God and you want the best for your children. And I call bull crap. And you can just be so honest. I love that. I've seen what you've allowed my own children to go through. And I said, here their dad abandons them when they're just babies. And, him leaving me was hard enough and not deserved. And for him to abandon his own children. And I thought, I can take whatever he did to me. But watching those kids, talk to him on the telephone and then go to the mailbox every day to check for a gift that he said he was going to send that's never coming. And watch them walk back heartbroken every day. What kind of God allows that? I said it would have been easier on all of us, and this is terrible to say, but it would have been easier if he died, because I could have told the kids this story about what a wonderful man he was and how much he loved them, and they would have at least had that. But now they've got this man that's alive that is failing them in every way, and of course children take that on and attribute it to something being wrong with them. And I really had held that against God, and I was bitter, and I wanted to be mad at him. I was kind of balled up about it. And he said, oh, you've completely misunderstood me. And he said, let me show you something. And we flash forward and we're sitting in the bleachers. David, my oldest son, is sitting to my right. Now, when I had the experience, my grandson was 2. So David's sitting to my right, and Cole's older. He's like 5 or 6, my grandson is. And we're watching him play soccer. And he's running up and down this field. And the sun's on his hair, and that magic of just kids, there's just something about it. And he's running up and down the field, and I just seeing him in his strong body and his, his hair, and he's just magic. It's just magic. And David looks at me and he says, Mom, I'm never going to get through this. He says, Mom, I'm going to be the dad to him that I deserved. If it took his dad leaving for him to make that commitment, I get it. It's been worth it. And I gotta say, he's been that dad. And it's so funny because a couple years later, Cole's playing soccer. Who would have known that at 2, right? Cole's playing soccer, and David looks at me and he says, Mom, I'm going to be the dad to him that I deserve. It just sucks the air out of you. I'm like, oh my gosh, that happened. And it was this confirmation from God. You were here. There's times you doubt that near-death experience because so many people doubt it. And he's like, no, you were here, and I'm making manifest the things that I promised you. And I was like, wow. The other thing I learned there was we have this really screwed up definition of good and bad. To us, good is when nothing is wrong and everything is right. And in the spiritual realm, good is forward motion, no matter how awful it feels. So you're moving forward, you're growing, you're affecting the lives of other people, even if you're doing it through grief or, whatever. That's considered good up there. He's like, yep, you're doing good work, even though all the circumstances around it suck. You're still good. It's not bad. You're moving forward. Now, the day that you start sitting in that recliner and you stop interacting with the world and you're just in that, I'm going to do what makes me comfortable, that's bad, even though nothing bad's happening. No. I learned when I was over there that before we come to this life, there's actually a decision-making process that we go through with some consultation of spirit guides and things like that about what family we want to come to and what general lessons we'd like to learn while we're here. And I think we know the whole story before we come. I think we forget it when we get here. I try to remind people of that because before you came, you knew what traumas you were going to face. And you were like, that's the life I want to live. I want to have those lessons because those are going to contribute to the growth of my spirit and the way it needs to grow. And so this higher you makes decisions here that are terrible, and here they're awful because this life, we perceive it as being really a long time. But I got to tell you, when I pulled out of my body, this seemed like it had been over like that. People say, well, what about kids with cancer that are suffering? Or what about kids that are born horribly deformed? And I just tell them, I'm like, those are the most sacrificial spirits. Those are the ones on the other side that said, I'll come void of even the ability to communicate just so I can show people a love that transcends speech.
In a place now with two other beings, and I was kind of looking down on the truck. And I could see the truck, I could see the desert around our damaged truck, and I could see all the bodies in the truck too. And I could see them as organizations of energy. And one of these beings that I was with was like a really good friend. And we were kind of messing around. We would do the equivalent of waving a hand and set different injuries in my body, and then get a flash, like hologram or picture of how my whole life would then unfold with those injuries. And from that perspective, we thought this was really hilarious. So we would give me a brain injury, and we would see this life of me trying to navigate the world with this brain injury, and we'd fall down laughing. We thought that was so hilarious. Or we would sever my right hand and then get this picture of me trying to do everything with my left hand. And after goofing around for a while, we said, okay, gotta get done with this. So I just set the injuries that I chose, that I wanted, in order to set me up for the things that I wanted to do. And then I blinked again, and I was standing down next to the vehicle on the desert, but it was kind of like Twilight Zone, like everything was suspended. It was like I was between time space, and I was with 8 or 9 other beings, and we were all talking about what I had agreed to do. But this discussion was more like from the viewpoint of someone actually on a construction site pounding the nails. So when I was talking about this with that big gathering about what I was going to do, it was more like talking to the architect or somebody who was designing a whole project. And now, it's very different when you get down on the ground and you have to do it. So we were talking about things from there. And then when we were done, I just popped back into my body, and the truck was still rolling down the road, and my eyes were still closed. I was still sitting like this. And when the truck came to a stop, then I thought, well, I better get on with it.
So just show me that past lifetimes are real, because we are infinite beings. There's no end to knowledge. There's no end to learning, and you learn for your entire existence. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting is that we come into life because we want to experience hardship, because that's where we learn. Not all the time do we come in to experience hardship, but if you didn't want to experience anything, you would stay on the other side, and you still learn that way. But it's like trying to describe to somebody what it's like to ride a bike. You really can't describe what it's like, and they have to actually do it. And once they do it, then they get it. And that's kind of like why we come in here, to learn. And so we do have a lot of different past lifetimes. The next place he took me to this one was a little bit different. All of these buildings were just enormous. I can't even just to iterate how large they were, but they were all just enormous. And this one was round. It was round and it had the marble columns going around in a circle, and it had a dome roof. And we walked in, and he took me to a marble table, and the table had 2 scrolls on it. And if you could imagine what papyrus scrolls look like, they look kind of like that. They were rolled up, and there were 2. One had a blue ribbon, and the other had a red ribbon. I don't know what the significance was of that, but so I picked up the one with the blue ribbon, I unwrapped it, and I unfolded it on the table. And immediately I could see all of this writing, and it was in black lettering, and it looked like it was in calligraphy. You know how you would take those pens and you dip them in ink and then you write with that? That's what calligraphy is. It looked like that. Well, when I went to try to read it, it folded up again. And I was told that I wasn't able to read about my life because it might interfere with what I was going to accomplish in this life. And what they wanted me to learn and to share was that our lifetimes really are planned out. We plan what country we're going to live in. We plan what language we're going to learn, who our parents are we going to go to college or not, what kind of career are we going to have. All of that stuff goes into it, as well as what we wanted to learn and accomplish and what our goals were. And that's what the life review was, to show you that, you really do have goals and you want to see how you did. So everybody has these scrolls, and they're all kept in this beautiful round building. And I don't know why, but we always go to this building to plan our next lifetime. And our guides help us. Our guides help us plan what we want to accomplish. Do you want to learn more about compassion? Do you want to learn more about love? Or these are the main themes that people have when they come into a life. What do you want to accomplish? And you plan them in this huge building. Well, when I looked to my left,
we use their faces. And that's when we talked about everything. And that's when they showed me the plan I chose. And I was really still ambitious. And I said, let me do more, what I can do. What can I do? How can I help more? What should I do? And they just said, you don't do, you just be. You've been yourself, and you've been doing that all your life. And they showed me how many people I have impacted, I have changed by small acts of kindness and small interactions. And that's what happens to everybody. We interact with each other, and we somehow influence without knowing it. And we are all teachers and students all together, and we're connected. And even if we are hurting each other, there was a balance. They showed me the giant balance on earth, which was, always balancing the dark and light, the negative and positive, pain and the joy. Everything was balanced. And I thought, wow, that is beautiful. And everybody had, every soul had their grand purpose. And that grand purpose was serving in a collective purpose, in a collective consciousness. So that was beautiful. And I thought, wow, the earth is actually amazing. But yeah, there were a lot of messages.
Well, let me stop you for a second. There seems to be a lot of you really wanted to level up in this game, if you will, if you're a video game character, and you're like, give me the hardest levels. I want the most challenges, because that's why I gain more experience. I can get stronger. I can get faster. I can learn more, become wiser. So you really stacked a bunch of stuff in this journey, if you will. When you were meeting with your spirit guides, what did you learn about the process of spirit guides, the process of how we build our own lives? What kind of information can you give the audience about that?
Thank you. So I've asked questions about why my life was hard. So that was answered, because you chose it. And also that there is a soul contract that we sign before coming, so we know what are the challenges, we know what we're taking in, and sometimes there are parts of the soul contract that you have no control over. You have no your free will doesn't apply there. So as an example, my childhood, so I was brought up in a very I would say not a healthy environment. So there was a lot of domestic violence, and there was a lot of abuse, and there was a lot of pain, and I didn't choose to be there. I even if I wanted to, I could have not changed that because I was a kid. There was no way out of it, but I wanted that experience. And now I was shown why I wanted that experience. And through that experience of pain, when I was going as a child, they also showed me how they were helping me out, how they were sending me signs, how they were telling me to go there, to go there. And it was all coming intuitively. As a child, I just heard voices or like just thoughts. They were coming to my head, and obviously you think that's your thought, but it wasn't my thought. Somebody said, go outside, hide in the barn, and I would do it, and that would help me to escape and survive.
I think it's one that came to me around in my 20s, and it came to me when I was in a really dark time in my life, recovering from abuse from childhood and everything, and going through depression and, getting help and hospitalizations and suicide attempts, all that kind of stuff. So while I was getting therapy and trying to just find out the spiritual meaning of why I went through so much trauma and reading about it and understanding, like this memory came back to me where I remember being in this sort of like meeting room, essentially. And I do think I remember like there were screens, or it was like you could look out either onto the earth or you could see like life possibilities, things like that. But the meeting room was really crowded because I had the feeling like I came into this really excited soul group that they had this really big, like all of them had like a plan for what they wanted to do. And they needed somebody to handle the really hard part of it and enter me. And I just remember feeling like I fell in love with the soul group. Like I don't know if they were exactly mine, or maybe I came separately into it and I was like, hey, I'll help you guys out. I'm not sure about that exactly 100%. But I just remember feeling like I can do this and I remember volunteering. So there's that whole like volunteering aspect of like I raised my hand and said, I'll go ahead and do this. And that was huge to know and to understand that I had that memory of doing it, because when you're coming from a lot of trauma, to understand why, the big why of why this happened to me, why am I going through this? That was a big moment and a big puzzle piece to put in there and be like, oh my gosh, I volunteered for this.
I hope those excerpts gave you food for thought that life is not random and your challenges do serve a purpose. So, in the upcoming video, review, reflect, and respond, you'll discover how to determine if your challenges stem from pre-birth agreements, how to respond and adapt in a constructive manner, and how to utilize them to expand and grow your consciousness to live a richer and fuller life.